Excellence is not talent. It's a decision that's repeated every day, even when no one is watching. Mineko Iwasaki learned this early on, and Japan built an entire culture on this truth. Most people seek recognition. The Shokunin spirit seeks something more dangerous, to master its own internal pattern. And when you understand that, you never accept mediocrity again, neither from others nor from yourself. Excellence is not a spectacle, it's a process. Mineko Iwasaki's journey was never built to impress audiences. From a very young age, she was taken out of ordinary comfort and placed in a routine where there was no applause, immediate validation, or emotional reward. The training was repetitive, silent, and often invisible to outsiders. Every gesture was corrected, every mistake observed, every detail refined, until the correct execution ceased to be effort and became second nature. This is the beginning of true excellence, when the body learns before the ego demands recognition. The Shokunin spirit is not born from talent, but from the disciplined repetition of the basics. In traditional Japan, glory is not given to those who do something extraordinary only once, but to those who execute the ordinary with absolute perfection throughout their lives. Mineko learned that value lies not in momentary impact, but in silent consistency. Excellence on this path is not an event. It is a continuous, often solitary process that demands humility to repeat the same movement until it becomes part of who you are. There's a modern illusion that excellence needs to be seen to exist. But Mineko was trained in the exact opposite, doing the right thing even when no one is watching, correcting, or praising. True refinement happens away from the public eye, when there's no audience, camera, or approval. It's in this invisible space that character is formed. The process doesn't seduce, doesn't excite, and doesn't reward quickly. And that's precisely why it separates those who only want to appear excellent from those who choose to be. Abandoning the process is easy when the result doesn't appear immediately. Many people start disciplined, but give up when they realize that the path requires repetition, silence, and patience. Mineko Iwasaki persevered because she understood something essential. The process isn't about impressing others, it's about shaping you. Each correct repetition strengthens the mind, adjusts the body, and trains the spirit to not depend on external stimuli. That's how excellence is built without noise. Now the inevitable question arises. How many times do you abandon the process because no one is watching? How many times do you lower the standard because there are no witnesses? The Shokunin spirit demands an honest answer. Excellence is what you do when there is no applause. If your commitment depends on recognition, then it is not commitment, it is performance. And performance disappears when the audience leaves. Discipline before emotion. On the path of a geisha, emotion never occupies the throne. It exists, but it doesn't govern. From a very young age, Mineko Iwasaki learned that feeling is not the same as acting, and that allowing emotions to guide decisions is surrendering control of one's own life. Discipline emerges as an internal axis, an invisible structure that sustains the body, mind, and gesture. It's not about repressing feelings, but about placing them in their proper place, behind the posture, never in front of it. Discipline teaches something the modern world has forgotten. Stability doesn't come from emotional comfort, but from the daily practice of self-restraint. In the geisha's world, every step, every tilt of the head, every silence is practiced until it becomes natural. Emotions are volatile, changing according to the environment, the gaze of others, the day's fatigue. Discipline, on the other hand, remains. It creates an internal pattern that doesn't fluctuate according to mood or external. Approval. When emotion leads, a woman reacts. When discipline leads, a woman chooses. That is the silent difference between constant vulnerability and inner power. The geisha does not allow herself to explode, justify herself, or beg for understanding. She observes, breathes, and maintains her posture. This does not make her cold. It makes her unwavering. Emotions pass, conduct remains, and it is this permanence that builds respect, presence, and authority. The Shokunin spirit reinforces this. Logic with almost relentless rigor. Do what needs to be done, in the right way, regardless of emotional state. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Emotion can inform, but never command. When discipline comes first, external chaos loses its power. The woman ceases to be a hostage to impulses and becomes the architect of her own behavior, even in hostile environments. The inevitable reflection is tough, but liberating. Are you living under the control of your emotions, or are you training your posture in the face of them? Because every time you react without control, you surrender power. And every time you choose discipline over emotion, you build something that no one can take away. Inner control. This is the silent path to excellence, not the most comfortable, but the most solid. Invisible pride, doing good, even without applause. The Shokunin spirit teaches that the true value of a work doesn't come from applause, but from the clear conscience of someone who knows they did their best. In traditional Japan, excellence was never a spectacle. It was always an internal commitment. Mineko Iwasaki was trained to repeat gestures to perfection even when no one was watching, because the standard didn't depend on witnesses. The pride that matters isn't displayed. It's silent. It resides in the integrity between what you do when you're being watched and when you're completely alone. There is a stark difference between those who work to be recognized and those who work, because they cannot accept mediocrity within themselves. The former depends on validation. The latter depends on character. Mineko Iwasaki learned early on that applause is fickle, but internal standards must be non-negotiable. The Shokunin doesn't ask if it's worth the effort when no one is watching. They strive precisely because no one is watching. This is the kind of discipline that builds real authority. When you condition your excellence on external reactions, you become a hostage to your environment. If you are praised, you deliver. If you are ignored, you relax. The path to Japanese excellence cuts this dependence at its root. Doing things well becomes a matter of identity, not reward. Mineko didn't refine her gestures to be applauded. She refined them because she refused to live below her own level. This mentality separates amateurs from masters. There is a type of pride that doesn't need to be announced. It manifests itself in posture, consistency, and the calmness of someone who knows they are in alignment with themselves. This invisible pride doesn't shout, doesn't explain itself, and doesn't ask permission. It sustains itself in the daily silence of repeated correct choices. The Shokunin understands that every small oversight creates internal cracks. Therefore, even the simplest detail deserves absolute respect. Now, the question that defines everything. If no one praised you, if no one noticed, if no one validated you, would you still maintain the same standard? This answer reveals who you are becoming. True excellence doesn't depend on an audience, it depends on decision. Mineko Iwasaki lived this. And those who choose this path understand that the greatest recognition is not being ashamed of themselves at the end of the day. Refinement is responsibility. Refinement was never vanity in traditional Japan. It was a responsibility, a silent commitment to one's own internal standard. Every gesture, every word, every pause carried the weight of identity. Mineko Iwasaki was raised to understand from a young age that the body speaks before the mouth, and that behavior reveals more than any discourse. Refinement in this context was not about pleasing others, but about not betraying oneself. When a woman refines herself, she declares that she will not accept living in emotional improvisation. On the path of a geisha, nothing is left to chance. The way of walking, sitting, serving tea, or maintaining silence is trained until it becomes natural. This is not repression, it is mastery. To refine oneself is to accept that one's reactions do not belong to the external world, but to one's internal discipline. It is to understand that elegance does not arise from impulse, but from conscious choice. Those who do not refine themselves live reacting. Those who refine themselves begin to lead. There is a clear difference between control and refinement. Control is effort. Refinement is identity. Mineko Iwasaki didn't need to remember to be disciplined. She was discipline in motion. The Shokunin spirit teaches that true refinement happens when what is right becomes automatic, when you don't need to prove anything because your standard speaks for itself. At that stage, self-control ceases to be burdensome and becomes light, almost invisible. Refining oneself is also a form of protection. In a noisy, impulsive, and emotionally disorganized world, refinement acts as a silent armor. It prevents any provocation from finding space within you. It blocks excesses, cuts off dramatizations, and eliminates the need to explain yourself. A refined woman doesn't defend herself, she simply doesn't blend in. This isn't coldness, it's emotional sovereignty. Therefore, the question isn't whether you're elegant or polite. The question is whether you take responsibility for your own behavior, whether you allow emotions to decide for you, or whether you decide despite them. Refinement is accepting that each of your actions builds, or destroys, the respect you have for yourself. In the end, it's not about appearance, but about character. And character, when well honed, doesn't make a sound. It endures. Excellence as a way of life, not as a goal. Mineko Iwasaki wasn't trained to get there. She was trained to be. From a young age, She learned that excellence isn't a trophy at the end of the road, but the road itself beneath her feet. Every gesture, every step, every silence was part of an identity built with rigor. In the Yayar Shokunin spirit, the question isn't, what do I get out of this? But rather, what kind of person do I become by doing this? Excellence ceases to be an external goal and becomes an internal and permanent commitment. When excellence is merely a goal, it can be negotiated. It can be postponed, made more flexible, abandoned when fatigue sets in. But when excellence is identity, it endures even on invisible days, when no one observes and nothing is applauded. Mineko Iwasaki lived under harsh rules, not to be admired, but to honor a standard that existed before her. The Shokunin doesn't work to impress, they work to avoid betraying themselves, and that demands a silent loyalty to one's own character. There is a profound difference between seeking results and building character. Results depend on circumstances, external validation, and timing. Character does not. It is forged through repetition by choosing the right path when the easiest option would be to give in. Mineko understood that true excellence doesn't accelerate, doesn't shorten paths, and doesn't accept emotional shortcuts. It maintains a standard even when it costs comfort, approval, or rest. That is discipline in its purest form. Living the path of excellence also means accepting that there will never be a finished state. The Shokunin knows that there is always room for refinement, always something to adjust, to improve, to deepen. There is no euphoria in perfection, only respect for the process. Mineko wasn't looking for the moment when she could relax her posture. She knew that relaxing too much is the beginning of a fall. Excellence at this level is not rigidity, it is conscious vigilance. Ultimately, the question isn't how much you've achieved, but who you've become along the way. If the results disappeared tomorrow, what would remain of you? The woman who lives excellence as her identity doesn't get lost when the scenery changes, because her value isn't in applause, but in her inner standard. The Shokunin spirit teaches this with relentless clarity. Goals end, character remains. And only those who understand this sustain excellence for a lifetime. Invisible pride, doing good even when no one sees it. There is a kind of pride that makes no noise. It doesn't need to be announced, photographed, or acknowledged. Mineko Iwasaki was raised with this silent principle. The value of a work doesn't increase because someone applauds, nor does it decrease because no one notices. The Shokunin spirit teaches that dignity is born from commitment to what is right, not from the world's reaction. Doing good is not a performance, it's a personal obligation. In traditional Japan, mistakes weren't just technical, but moral. To perform something carelessly meant disrespecting the art, the tradition, and oneself. Mineko learned that every detail carries intention, and that neglecting the invisible weakens the visible. True pride lies not in being seen doing well, but in knowing that one wouldn't do differently even if no one were watching. This creates an internal foundation that doesn't depend on validation. When pride is invisible, it doesn't waver with praise, nor is it destroyed by criticism. It is stable, People who live by this principle don't become hostages to external approval, because their standard is internal. Mineko didn't need to be reminded at every performance to maintain her standard. She carried within her a silent, non-negotiable requirement. The Shokunin doesn't ask if it's worthwhile, it fulfills it. This type of attitude requires emotional maturity. Many only deliver excellence when there is a clear reward, status, or immediate recognition. But the spirit of a job well done without an audience builds something rarer: trustworthiness. Those who act this way don't need to explain themselves, promote themselves, or defend themselves. Their consistency speaks for itself. Mineko knew that repeating what is right, even anonymously, shapes character more than any applause. Ultimately, invisible pride is what sustains excellence over time. When the lights go out, when external interest fades, it is this silent pride that prevents the standard from falling. The question that remains is not who is watching, but who you are when no one is watching. The Shokunin spirit answers without emotion. Do well no matter what. That is how character remains intact. If you've chosen excellence as a path and not just a passing phase, then this content is for you. Here we don't talk about shortcuts or quick results, but about character, posture, and consistency. In the next video, we'll delve even deeper, where silence becomes practice and discipline ceases to be mere effort. The next level doesn't call for haste. It demands presence, rigor, and self-control.